G'day Tiger fans, welcome to another Raw Vision special, and today we've got a very, very special guest, a hero of mine, the great Michael Disco Roach. 200 games and over 600 goals for our mighty club. Coleman medalist and Richmond Hall of Fame member. Disco, thanks for joining us on Raw Vision.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting us.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
What about this new facility, mate? It's changed a little bit from your early days.
It's well, we're in a lovely theatre where all the team meetings have had. We were lucky enough to get a seat. Many years ago, we had a little room and we'd have our meetings in there, and this is just fantastic.
And you were saying just earlier, Berkey would have loved to have a meeting
Francis,
in here.
Because we're all working full time, we'd come to training at 5 o'clock and then train, especially if we got beaten, we'd train till about 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
You'd have your shower and then you'd have your team meeting, and 10:30, 11 o'clock, you're thinking, I haven't anything to eat, and you'd head off home and have to get up the next morning and go to work. So, your food and your basically takeaways on the way home type thing.
Well, it's changed a bit, obviously, especially from your early days. You're from Tassie,
yes,
where I'm from. Tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you came to Richmond.
Yeah, I'm from a little town called Westbury, which my footy team was the Westbury Tigers.
Yeah.
And for me to improve, I went to Longford, which was where I got recruited from.
Yeah.
And they were the Longford Tigers. And then Richmond saw me play in an under-15 schoolboys side and thought that I may be able to make league footy, and saw Mum in the grandstand and asked could they come out and talk to us about coming over to the Tigers. And I came over as a 15, 16-year-old, but was quite young, and my first job was at Dimmies, in the shoe department at Dimmies. I lasted about 6 weeks. I hadn't signed Form 4, Richo, which was you can only sign 2 interstate players a year. And then Richmond, I went back home and played with Longford and played some reasonable footy. Other clubs showed some interest, but I always wanted to come back to the Tigers, and I signed as a 17-year-old.
When you came over as a 17-year-old, you actually started and made your first few games on the wing for Richmond. You were pretty skinny, and were you a forward in Tassie, or did you come over as a wingman?
No, I played, in schoolboys around my school as sort of a ruckman, ruckman forward. Back in those days, you could sort of run wherever you wanted to.
Yeah.
So I basically played in the ruck as a kid. When I came over, I mean, if I turned sideways, you wouldn't have seen me. I was skinny and had no weight training or anything like that. Yeah. So Barry Richardson, who was our coach, said that we'll start you on the wing, try and build you up to be a key position if you're good enough. Yeah. And 79, after a big pre-season with Tony Jewell, they named me at full forward in the practice games and started to get a kick.
Well, you mentioned Bones Richardson. What sort of a coach was he?
Richo, I reckon he was a terrific coach. He was certainly a teacher. We had a little bit of success in 77. We made the finals. And then 78 we battled, and Tony Jewell had won the seconds grand final in 77, and they appointed Tony in 79.
Yeah. So when Tony came along, there's a legendary stories about the 1980 pre-season and how tough it was. Is that right?
79 and 80. Yeah. I mean, you speak to Kevin Bartlett and Kevin Sheedy and Neil Baum and people that were around in 79 when he came in. He thought that we weren't physically tough enough and strength-wise. When that pre-season was unbelievable. Look, it probably made me as a footballer, in got my body strong enough to play key position. Yeah. But it's frightening. Cold sweats just thinking about how hard it was.
Well, obviously in 1980 we went on to beat the Pies in the Premiership. That was a pretty good moment. At what stage during the year did you feel like you had a chance to win the Premiership?
Well, we finished off fairly well in 79, and then we had another tough pre-season. And then we probably started to beat some sides that had finished above us, and we gained some confidence. We still had Kevin Bartlett, Francis Burke, Mickey Malthouse. We had some pretty experienced people, and I think they thought, we could be a chance. Yeah. And Tony Jewell believed that we could. Yeah. And we started to believe it as young fellas started to believe that, if we play well enough, we probably can win this. You know?
And that season, you kicked 112 goals yourself, won the Coleman medal. Personally, pretty satisfying year?
Yeah, it was a good year. I started to kick some goals in 79 and 1980. The ball was coming down a lot. Yeah. I had some terrific teammates like Dale Waitman and Jeff Rains and Robbie Wiley and Barry Rollings, and a great ruck division with Mark Lee, and the ball, and had Big Clokey and KB and those guys on the forward line. So the ball was down there a bit, so it was good. All you asked for, and you know, Richo, is the ball to be kicked in long and quick and one out on your man, and lucky enough. You know, as long as I didn't fumble it, I'd be able to mark it, because KB would pinch it if I did fumble.
Well, Flea said you would have kicked 150, but KB kept taking them out of your hands on the second grab.
Yeah, if you didn't mark it one grab and you went to grab it the next time, it'd be gone. The little fella would take it, and he'd be running back with his hands in the air. Where'd that ball go? You know.
And what about the famous mark, your mark of the year over Kelvin Moore? What are your memories of that? Can you vividly recall it?
Look, I sort of can. The ball was kicked in from the wing, and I think a fellow by the name of Graham Robinson, who played a few games at Richmond, kicked the ball, and I don't think he was aiming for me. I started to lead, and it was a kick that sort of sat up there, and the pack was coming back, and I was going forward and jumped, and what am I doing up here type thing, lucky enough to be able to grab it long enough to be paid the mark. So it was one of those rare things, and just lucky that there was people out there to snap it on pitch or on still shot, and very lucky.
Now, what happened in 1981? We didn't make the finals. Was did the boys celebrate too hard, or what happened?
Look, I don't. We probably did. We were only young. We were 20, 21, 22 years of age. We won by a record margin. Yeah. Maybe we didn't sort of take it, train hard enough, and maybe there was a few injuries and things like that. But I don't know why we didn't. And then in '82 we were favourites to win again, but we got knocked off by Carlton.
Yeah. What happened in '82? There's the stories of the finals with the Mick Malthouse scenario with Berkey, the fitness test, and
look, we had some injuries coming into the finals. We were favourites to win. We ran out on the ground. We were a very big side. We went in with the same game style and plan. It started to rain. We were probably over sized in the wet, and then. We lost Mickey Malthouse on the Thursday night. Their little fellas grew a leg because Malthouse was a tough little back pocket to play on. When it dried out, we got in front just before half time and probably went in front. I think we went in front, but then it rained again after half time, and we got beaten by basically 16 points or 20 points or something.
Now, we had a bit of a dilemma that year. BT was here and he was a good forward as well, and yourself, but just couldn't fit you both into the team, or was it because of the weather?
No, well, in '82, Brian had hurt his knee early on in the season, and he kicked about 60 goals. I'd played most of the year in the ruck. Mark Lee had broken both bones in his hand, and I'd played in the ruck, and Brian had played full forward. But Brian had hurt his knee and was sort of battling. He wanted to get back for the grand final. He actually ran out of the ground in the 1982 grand final. He was never going to play. He probably wasn't quite ready. And then we played the next week. We had a Commonwealth Games exhibition game up in Queensland, and Brian played in that and actually hurt his knee again. Right. So he probably wasn't quite ready. So I don't think the coaching did the wrong thing there, because Brian probably, even though he was good enough, he probably wasn't quite ready to play.
At that stage, you would have thought the Tigers, strong team, 2 grand finals in 3 years. You thought we probably would have gone on, but things just started to sort of turn pear-shaped after that. They got into that bidding war with Collingwood players.
The money, I think, started to come into footy a bit in those days, and Collingwood were trying to get a premiership, and there was a few disagreements with contracts here with I nearly called him Andrew Rains, with Jeff Rains, David Cloak. Not so much Brian Wood as money-wise, but there was a few disagreements with the great Graham Richmond and Francis, and a couple of the boys decided to try elsewhere, and we probably lost our way a little bit. We tried to recruit some players back in John Annear, Phil Walsh, but they weren't the style of player that Jeff Rains and Francis Burke and Terry Smith and Brian Wood and Robbie Wiley went back. KB retired. we just fell apart a bit.
Yeah. Was it hard work with the different coaches? They did change a lot there. You had Mike Patterson, Paul Sproul, then TJ. Like, there was a different coach every year there for 3 or 4 years. It's pretty hard to get to.
It was pretty tough, and I think coaching need longer than a year.
Yeah.
Once they might change the style and then they just start to get it right, and the committee are not happy or somebody's not happy and they give them the flick and get somebody else.
Yeah.
It was pretty tough. We had a lot of different coaches and different styles we were trying to play.
And what brought about the end of your career, Roach? Was it injuries or had you just had enough?
Oh no, well, Richo, in 1985-86 I broke some bones in my back, which probably I didn't think at the time would affect me, but it probably did. I lost a lot of distance off my kicks. And then from then on, with my back being crook, I kept tearing hamstrings, and then I had 2 Achilles operations and a couple of knee operations. And really, in the end, as much as I was trying to get to my 200th game, I was really battling. I was running around in the seconds, and I was worn out, basically. My body had...
Takes its toll.
Yeah, I think all the other things, apart from the back being pretty crook, once you do an Achilles, I think you really should just say, I'm going to retire, because you got no spring. I had them both operated on, and I was really, in the end, I couldn't get a kick run in the set. It was embarrassing, Richo, and I know I was trying to get to my 200th game. I was stuck on 193 for about 2 or 3 years. I got 7 games out in 1989, and really my last game, I think KB might have felt sorry for me. I was lucky enough to get my wheelchair down the race and broke out through the banner and played the last game against Carlton.
I think you deserved it.
I'm hoping I did. I was lucky enough. Craig Lambert handballed the ball. I only lasted about 15 minutes on the ground. Kevin Bartlett took me off. I got back on the ground with about 5 minutes to go, and Craig Lambert handballed the ball out to me on the half-forward flank. I kicked the ball in towards the goals. Just as it was going through, the siren sounded, and I thought, that's it, I've had enough. That's it, I'll retire.
You finished with a goal. You were known for your goal kicking, beautiful long drop punt of the ball. Did Royce Hart give you any tips when you first started?
Richo, I was always a fairly long kick, but didn't have a routine, and you know how I've been on routines. Royce Hart was a beautiful kick for goal, and when Royce became, I suppose, skills coach, he took me aside when I started to play full forward and said, look, you've got to get yourself a routine. And he had a routine. I just copied his routine. How far back from the man in the mark, what spots to pick out. And I just kept that routine. I had a bit of paper that Royce had written out the routine, and I had that in my bag, and sometimes I put it in my sock. And I sort of knew if I'd missed the goal, why I'd missed it, as in I'd looked up or I'd stabbed at it or whatever. And I didn't change my routine, even though once I'd done some damage to my back, I couldn't kick the distance anymore. I still tried to keep that routine. Yeah,
well, for the Tiger fans out there, I did some work with Roach for a couple of years and actually kicked 27-3 in 95. And that's the record for anyone who's had 30 shots or more. I don't know what happened after that, but I should have kept giving you a call.
You probably... Look, I used to come down and help Richo with his kicking, but as the game became more professional, I just couldn't get the time to get off work to come down and help. Maybe now I might be employed to do it, but I had a routine, and Richo, was kicking quite well.
I did for 1 year. But anyway, I'll tell you who's going well now, this goal kicking, Jack Revolt. He's wearing your old number. Yes. What are your thoughts on him? And his kicking's fantastic.
Look, when Jack first started to kick for goal, I was concerned at, he's twiddling the ball around in his hand, and as he was coming in, he was still twiddling it. I thought, I don't really like that, and he didn't really have a routine. But whoever has worked with Jack has got a beautiful, balanced routine. It's only a few steps. I certainly used to take 11 steps to kick for goal. Jack probably only takes 4 or 5, but it's beautifully balanced. He doesn't change, and he's got it right, and it's great that he's kicking so well.
And what are your thoughts on the current group? You still follow the Tigers?
Yes,
obviously?
I've been to 4 games so far this year. Look, I'm quite excited. I think when we can run sides and beat sides in a quarter that are very good sides in Hawthorn and Collingwood, that we're on the right track, and it's exciting. We've got some exciting players. We've got a good full forward. I think we're on the right track. It may be another couple of years before we really start to pressure for the 8, but we're improving all the time, and we're playing some great quarters, which happens with a young side, and I reckon we're on the right track.
And your thoughts on the people in charge, Damien Hardwick and Benny Gale, who you played with?
Yeah, look, I've got a lot of time for Benny. I've met Damien a few times. I like his style and his attitude towards building the club, and we have to start back from scratch. And I think we're on the right track. Benny's a terrific leader. Got a lot of respect, and it's great to see the Tiger supporters getting behind the club and knowing that we're on the right track to build a successful club again.
And what about life after football, Roachy? What have you been up to?
I was in the currency for about 18 or 19 years, which was terrific. When my footy career came to an end, I went in the currency with one of the directors of the footy club by the name of John Robertson, had a car dealership. And I really enjoyed that, but at the age of 45, I thought I don't want to be selling cars for the rest of my life. So I did a financial planning course and formed my own business called, I'll give it a plug, Michael Roach Financial
Get it in there.
Solutions. And I look after people's superannuation. So basically I find people's super and try and look after it and hopefully make them some money so they can retire a bit earlier.
And we're talking before, you're off to Perth to see your son Tommy, who's playing for Swan Districts. Must have been great to see him play here, and you obviously still enjoy watching him play.
Yeah, I do, Richo. Look, it was, Tommy had 3 years here, played 11 games and maybe not quite made it. Got a few injuries and stuff, but he went, once you finish your career in league footy at 21, you sort of, what do I do now type thing. He went to, played with North Ballarat and did a uni course as a phys ed teacher at North Ballarat, Ballarat Uni. Played in 2 premierships at North Ballarat, and then last year got a nice little offer to go to Swan Districts, and played in another premiership with Swan Districts and played quite well.
Played with Andy Cracker.
Played with Andy Cracker. And this year they've only won a couple of games, but Tommy's having a good season, so he's enjoying it. And the only trouble is too far away, and there's not many replays on the footy. But with the internet now, you can sort of get on and see how many kicks he's had and all that. But we're going over this weekend to watch him play, my wife and myself, and he's going along and he enjoys Perth. Unfortunately, it's too far away, but it's a nice spot to go.
Well, thanks for joining us. But I just want to finish Disco, the nickname. How exactly did it come about? Because I've heard a few different stories. Can you tell the Tiger fans?
It's certainly I can't dance, and got
6'5", you can't dance.
No rhythm at all. Can't even clap to any music. Basically, how it came about was back in 1977. Graham Richmond had a hotel called the Seaview down in Fitzroy Street, St Kilda. And one of the stars of that was they had a cabaret there. They had the lay girls around, and Richmond Footy Club on Saturday nights would organise functions, and this was a function where there was 300 or 400 people went to. Before I'd gone to the function, I went out and had a couple of beers with a fellow by the name of Cameron Clayton, the Rattler, as we used to call him.
Another Tassie boy.
Another Tassie boy. Took me out, and I never drank beer and got into a few beers. By the end of the night, after the lay girls, I got up. I was singing in front of 300 people. The song that was out, I'm not sure whether it's number one, but it was called The Disco Duck. And I knew it word for word, Richo. Right. So I sang in front of Cameron and myself, grabbed the microphone and sang The Disco Duck. The next day, I get to training, and the Sunday morning training, and Neil Barnes said, "Oh, here comes the Disco Kid." And basically that's how it started. And then people thought that I could really dance, but
you couldn't?
No hope at all.
Well, I think the rule is if you're 6'5", you stand at the bar, Roachy.
Exactly, or in the background where you can't be seen, because at 6'5" you do stand out.
Exactly.
And if you can't dance, you're
in trouble.
Yeah, you shouldn't do it. So I stood at the back at the bar, and I think people expected me to do it, John Travolta, but
wasn't the case.
Useless, absolutely useless.
Well, thanks for joining us on Raw Vision. It's been a pleasure. Hero of mine, Michael Roach, absolute legend, and thanks for joining us.
You're a hero of mine, Richard.
Thanks, guys.